Hello, my lovely friend. Are you ready to do another Tunisian stitch? I have been itching to do some Tunisian lately, and one of the stitches that I like the most is the Tunisian purl stitch, but that one can be a bit tricky to do. So I'm going to show you how to do that here with some beautiful yarn that I've created called cowboy jeans. This is one of my featured colorways in my shop right now, so if you absolutely love this colorway too and how it works up, you can grab you a skein or two and enjoy the beautiful brown, denim blue, and white colors that embody this beautiful hand-dyed yarn. All right, so I'm starting out with some worsted weight cowboy jeans here, complimentary Johnny Cash hairs that are stuck in it. Thank you, Johnny. And then I also have a 6mm hook. Now, that is not usually I usually go up more than that in size when I'm working with Tunisian, but I'm going to try a 6mm because purl has a great drape to it, and I think I can get away with it because usually this calls for a 5mm. More Johnny Cash hairs. So with that being said, let's go ahead and jump in. So with the purl stitch, you can chain any number of stitches, so you don't have to be precise about, you know, counting your stitches. So I'm just going to do a few here. I always pull out to do knitting because that's what I knit the majority of the time. So I always pull out my yarn as if I'm going to cast on that way. So if you see me pulling out a crazy long tail, that's why. All right, so I have my slip stitch on my hook, and now I'm going to start chaining, and I'm going to just chain away. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 27, 28, 29, and 30. So I'm just going to do 30 here because I think that's a pretty good swatch. So now that I've got my 30 here, I'm going to work my foundation row. So I'm going to skip this first little stitch here that I have, and then I'm going to start working into the second one here. And I'm just going to put my hook in there, pull up a loop, and I'm going to leave that loop on the hook. I'm going to move over to the next chain, do the same, pull up a loop. I'm going to do that all the way down. Now, sometimes I like to flip the chain and go in through the little bumps on the back, but I'm not going to do that this time. I'm just going to go into that top leg. Feeling sassy this morning. All right, so let's make sure we're not bunching the work up too much so we don't pinch it. So I like to give a good spread across the stitches as I'm working, because it can be really easy in Tunisian crochet to cinch your work up in the middle because you're making the cast on too tight or that foundation row. So let's be mindful. Working along, working along. All right, now I've reached the end here, and I've got all my loops on my hook. So if you're following along, this is what you should have. So now we're going to work the backwards pass. So I'm going to chain 1, and then I'm going to yarn over and pull through 2. And it can help to scoot your stitches up closer to the end so you're not tugging your work. So I'm going to yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2, all the way back. Look at here, sir. My yarn is getting caught on everything over here. I've got another Tunisian crochet hook on the side, just in case this one doesn't tickle my pickle, because I want this to be drapey. And the yarn got stuck on it. Rude. Extremely rude. So you can tell, like, when I'm working this, I have like the lightest little feather touch with these stitches. I'm not tugging, not pulling. You know, it's all very easy. If you find yourself in a situation where you feel like you're doing a workout routine trying to get these stitches through here, then take a pause and readjust. Make sure that you're keeping everything loosey-goosey. Your yarn isn't being pulled too tight. Your needle isn't being, you know, a point of friction for you. All right, so we got our foundation row finished here, complete. So now we're going to skip this first vertical bar because we already have a stitch coming out of it here, and we're going to work into the second one. And what we're going to do is we're going to bring the yarn to the front, and this can be a little bit tricky. So what I like to do is just drop the yarn here while I get situated. So I've got the yarn in the front. I'm going to insert my hook from right to left into that stitch. Then I'm going to pick up my yarn, make sure that the yarn is going in front of that stitch, yarn over. With your finger, hold that yarn a little so it doesn't get in your way. So you've got your yarn coming in the front. With your finger, give it a little pinch, yarn over, pull through. Boom. Now you've got your purl stitch. And now the yarn is in the front, so it's going to be a little bit easier to work the rest of those stitches. So I'm going to go down into the next one. I've got my yarn in front here. I'm going to make sure it stays in front, give it a little pinch, yarn over, pull through, and then there we go. And I'm going to continue working, always making sure that my yarn is in front of the hook. So go in from right to left, pull it down, move it to the back of your needle so it wraps that front stitch, yarn over, pull through. And you can give a little tug here just to make sure that the stitch is nice. We're going to keep doing that all the way down. So make sure your stitch is in front, or your yarn is in front of your stitch. You can hold it here with your thumb, yarn over, pull through. And then as you get going, it'll get easier. Your hand movements will become more fluid. You'll get that muscle memory that you need to just zip right on through. Because it is a little tricky. And that first stitch is always the trickiest one because you got to fight and get the yarn to where it needs to be to complete that stitch. All right, so I'm working down on through, and you can see I'm getting a little bit more comfortable with this stitch. The hand movements are starting to become a little bit more automatic, and that will happen for you too. Just got to be patient. If you find yourself getting confused, slow down, right? Because I always have a tendency to try to rush through these things. So if you slow down, make sure your yarn's in front, loop it over, give a little pinch there, pull through. Yarn in front, pinch and pull through. And that's going to produce that beautiful little bump in the front. That is so indicative of the purl stitch. My dog is having a time with people outside today. He does not like it. So if you hear him giving people the woofs, that's what's going on. There's someone who has the audacity to be outside of the patio doing stuff that is entirely unrelated to him. He's not having it this morning. All right, so we're working down through. This can be a very relaxing, meditative stitch if you let it be, once you get the rhythm of it. This is one of those where it's just like, I don't know about you, but certain stitches feel different to me, and this is one of those that feel peaceful. I don't know if that makes any sense to anyone but me. All right, so we're at the end here. We can tell we have no more front loops to work into. So our next order of business is going to be doing this little bit here where we turn, right? So I'm going to turn my work here so it's facing me, and I'll see a V right here. So I'm going to go under that V, pull up a loop, and then that completes my my row of Tunisian pearls. Now to do my backwards pass, I'm going to chain 1. Let's scoot our stitches up so we aren't pulling and yanking on the yarn. Chain 1, and then we're just going to do our backwards pass as usual, which is yarn over, pull through 2, all the way to the front of the work, or to the beginning of the work. There we go again with this being stuck on that. Let me move this. All right, there we go. I had to move that hook. It kept getting caught up in the yarn. My goodness gracious, just everything today. Just everything. I think I rolled the cake too tight. The yarn's giving me a fuss trying to come out. All right, so now we're back at the beginning again. Look at that, how gorgeous that is. All right, so we're going to do the same thing over again. We're going to skip this first vertical bar because the loop is coming out of it, and we're going to work into this one. Let's move our yarn to the front, insert from right to left, give a little pinch, and then pull up. Do that. Let's see what happens if you don't give it a pinch. So if you don't give it a pinch, it can be tricky to get that hook through there because the yarn wants to go up to the neck of that hook. So I always like to give it a little pinch to hold it so I can access pulling through that loop. Makes it a lot easier. So if you're scooting through and you can do it without pinching, then by all means. But for me, I find that giving that little pinch right there allows me to move a little bit quicker. And sometimes I don't pinch in time. There's a very certain position you have to pinch, like right there. So you pinch when you plop it down in front of that stitch. Otherwise, you're just going to have a hard time. Well, I have a hard time with it. You might not. You might be much more fluent in your movements. And also you have to take into consideration that I'm doing this within the constraints of a table. So I have over here so much room I can move these needles or these hooks. All right, here's a tricky little bit. Make sure when you're working these stitches that you're not going behind both legs, because that's going to produce an entirely different stitch. But it can be easy to do if you're scooting along. You're just going to want to go in that front leg only. And it helps me whenever I'm doing this to kind of take my middle finger of my left hand and place it behind that stitch. And then I can just scoot the hook along the pad of my middle finger, and it just effortlessly slides into that front loop, if that makes any sense. All right, let's do our little stretchy here so we're not bunching the fabric up and making things tight and cinched in the middle. Keep scooting on down. Scooty poo. This is one of those where you could put on a movie and just zone out while you do it. I'm starting to catch my mind wandering right now into a different time and place, doing a little daydreaming. All right, we're at the end here. So you know what we need to do. We need to turn, find our V, and go into it. And then pull up a loop. All right. So now we're on to our backwards pass again. So we're going to chain one, scoot those stitches up, and then we're going to yarn over and pull through two. All the way to the beginning. Now, a lot of people will stop and just exit the video and go about making their beautiful piece of Tunisian fabric, and then that will be the end of our interactions together here on the interwebs. But I would love it. It would mean so much to me if you took a second before you left, now that you've got, you know, how to do this, if you were to just hit that like button. And it would make me so happy if you would leave me a comment and just let me know you were here. Say, hey, thanks, or anything, just as you would a friend who was teaching you how to do something. Just give a thanks and let me know that you enjoyed what I did here, if how I taught this was useful. I love hearing feedback, and I love knowing that I was able to help. So before you run away with your new knowledge of how to do the purl stitch, consider doing that. All right, so here's what we have so far. This is our fabric. So we have some beautiful little purl bumps here in the front. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to work this up just a little bit more so you can see exactly what this fabric looks like. And so I'll have a beautiful thumbnail to show off my brand new stitch that I've done here. All right, I'll see you in just a few. All right, so I've worked up a bit of fabric here, and I want to give a little caveat here for you. So if you're working this and you're starting to notice that your work is slanting, like it's becoming, you know, it's shorter on this side, make sure that you're not missing that last little loop. Because when you're working, it can be a little tricky. This one can like, it has a tendency to hide a little bit sometimes when you get to the end here. But make sure that you're working that very last one. Because when I started doing Tunisian crochet, I would notice that my work would be slanting and I'd be missing stitches. And I couldn't for the life of me figure out what was going on at that time. And I realized one day that I was missing my very last loop. So make sure you're not missing your very last loop. So that's a helpful little tip that I wish I would have had when I started. So I think this is all I'm going to work up now because I am pressed for time. I have a busy morning. But this is what you should have. And it is indeed a very drapey fabric. Very. As you can see, there is no curl whatsoever. And let's take a peek at the back and see what that looks like. Oh, I'm even pleased with the back side as well. So it does look to be reversible. So this one gives you a little bit more bumpies. And this one is a little bit tighter of a bumpy. So if you like that version better, you could always flip it. But this is lovely. All right, I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, hit like, hit subscribe, and let me know how I did below. All right, bye.